So up first, we are joined by Far East Gold with the ticker code FEG, a company focused on its advanced copper gold projects in Indonesia and Australia. To tell us more, I'm joined by Chairman Paul Walker. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Jane. Thanks very much for having me.
Let me just bring up your presentation.
So, usual disclaimer. So, in summary, for people who don't know Far East Gold, we have a portfolio of 6 projects. 3 are located in Indonesia and 3 are in Australia, and they're very advanced copper and gold projects. Before we came along, and since we've been working on them, about $50 million has been spent on exploration to date. We have a really good, strong track record of mine development and operation, both in Australia and Indonesia. And between our board and management, we've managed to raise over $1 billion for mine operations in Indonesia alone for other projects. So fairly confident with the jurisdiction and comfortable with how to take a project in a land of a huge opportunity in Indonesia and progress them into operation development and production. Across our projects, more than 45,000 metres of drillings happened. We listed in March this year, went to raise 8 to 12. We raised just under 12 million. As of today, we have a market cap of about $130 million. All of our projects are well advanced to the next stage of exploration. Our locations, so 3 of our projects located on the Sunda Magmatic Arc up in Indonesia, and 3 are located in Queensland, 2 in the Drummond Basin and 1 on the Connors Arc. This gives a bit of a snapshot of the various stages of our projects in one small hit. They range from sort of nearly 2,000 hectares up to 24,000 plus hectares, and they range from early stage exploration in one of our projects in Queensland through to advanced resource definition in one of our projects in Indonesia. Has 1 million ounces of gold resource estimate, 190 million pounds of copper. And another one of our projects actually has a mining license. So theoretically, we could be developing a mine tomorrow on that project. So quite a broad cross-section of early stage through to advanced near-term production projects. So this is a map that overviews our 3 Indonesian projects, Woyla, Wanagiri, and Tringalek. Now, Woyla, we consider that to be our flagship project, and about half of the money we've raised is going into Woyla's exploration. And the reason why we're doing that is we saw that as probably the best undrilled project in Southeast Asia, and the best opportunity for value uplift for our shareholders by focusing on advanced exploration in that project. Tringalek is also quite interesting, and so is Wanagiri. As I said, Wanagiri has a 1 million ounces gold resource estimate. They both all sit on the Sunda Magmatic Arc. It hosts a number of world-class tier 1 projects, and generally speaking, it's mostly underexplored. The Woyla project that we have, it's a 24,000 hectare contract of work, a 6th-generation contract of work, which is a particular type of tenure that's issued to mining companies in Indonesia. The very first contract of work that was issued in Indonesia was for the Freeport mine, which is the 3rd largest gold mine in the world. And the 6th-generation contract of work that we hold is only about one of 20 in the country for this type of tenure for mineral development and operation. What's good about it? It gives us, once we start into production, we have a 30-year mine life that we can extend for a further 2 10-year periods, so potentially a 50-year tenure under that contract of work. And it's generally considered the most secure form of tenure that you can have in Indonesia. This project's been kicking along for 25 years in the early stage exploration phase. Barrick had it back in the early 90s, and then Newcrest had it. Neither of those companies could progress beyond early stage exploration. They were constrained and they couldn't do drilling. We've taken the work that they've done and expanded upon it, and we've defined 13,000 metres of low sulfidation epithermal vein systems and a defined and mapped strike length of 13 kilometres, spread across 4 separate prospect areas. What's been really encouraging is the assay of rock samples that have been taken from artisanal mining adits and at depth have in all the prospect areas have returned bonanza grade mineralisation in terms of gold grades of up to 119 grams a tonne in Anak Perak, and silver of about nearly 1,200 grams per tonne in another one of the prospects of Low Impact. Now, why Newcrest liked this project? They saw similar structural characteristics in terms of coliform and crustiform banding, as well as gingroo banding across the prospects where they did their early stage exploration. That was similar to their other project that they had in Indonesia called Gosowong, which was a 6 million ounce, 20 gram per tonne average grade mine that has excited them and excites us in terms of the similarities from a textural structural perspective. So as I mentioned, there are 4 distinct epithermal vein systems in this project. There's also 3 distinct magnetic anomalies for porphyry in terms of expanding this project once we've gone through the epithermal phase. The strike lengths, as you can see on the map on the right-hand side, Anak Perak is about 4.7 kilometres long. And then we have the 3 other defined and mapped strike systems. We've currently finished some IP survey work in Rek Rinti that extends towards the Aloha impact vein system. And one of the things we're seeing is that by the geophysics, the strike system is extending towards there. And our hypothesis is we'll do some further testing that all of these 3 systems, Rek Rinti, Aloha, and Impact Aloha Rek, actually join together, so it becomes a much larger complex system of a camp of vein systems within the tenement. Just to give you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about, you see there's a little colourful footprint on the right-hand side. That's the size of the footprint of the Gosawong project, which was the 6 million ounce, 20 plus grams a tonne project that Newcrest had, which, as I say, they saw similarities in the textures here in Woyla to that one. But that just gives you an idea of the scale of the vein system we're playing with here. We have been really successful since we with progressing this project since we got involved in it a few years ago. We were able to downgrade about 7,700 hectares of the 24,000 hectare project from its forestry status to enable drilling to occur. We were then given the environmental authority, and then we were given the borrow use license. So we started drilling for the first time in the history of the project at the end of September. Now, we've defined our first phase of drilling is an 18-hole program which spreads across 900 metres of the 4.7 kilometre strike length in Anak Perak. We have a second phase, which is a further 16 holes, which will take it to about 1.7 kilometres of that 4.7 kilometre strike length. And we started on the 13th of October drilling in the Rek Rinti prospect. So we now have three rigs operating across the tenement, focusing on 2 separate prospect areas. As of today, we've completed 13 of the 18 holes, which accounts for about 600 metres of the 4.7 kilometre strike length. And as of 3 days ago, 8 lots of samples had been cut and sent to the laboratory. So we're working through what we're seeing there, and so far we've been really encouraged. Every one of the holes that we've drilled, the observations are showing visible quartz breccia vein systems. Really interesting base metal mineralization that we're observing from the core samples, but quite distinct mineralization in the various zones. So looking forward to getting a better understanding once we get the assays back as to what this means with respect to our first phase of drilling. There's some examples of the core samples from some of the first holes that we've drilled. Quite interesting quartz mineralization that we're seeing across every one of the holes. In fact, the vein widths that we're seeing have been pretty much what our geophysics surveys we expected to see. So we're seeing up to true vein width of about 25 to 30 meters wide in parts. So it's quite encouraging in terms of the size and scale of this system. Our second focus project is also in Indonesia. It's called Tringalek. This is a 13,000 hectare project, and it's an IUPOP, which is an operation and production mining permit. So we could theoretically build a mine. It's been identified by the Indonesian government as one of the top 3 greenfield gold projects in the country. And we're getting a lot of support from the Indonesian government to try and progress our projects, particularly Tringalek and Woyla. What we like about it, you can see the map on the bottom left-hand side. You can see Tringalek, and to the right, you can see a project called Tujuh Bukit. Tujuh Bukit displays similar sort of magnetic signature, similar volcanic center, 5.6 kilometers across, to Tringalek and Tujuh Bukit, and similar structural features in the samples that have been taken. And so we see a lot of encouraging similarities between our project and Tujuh Bukit, which has a resource estimate of 30 million ounces of gold and 19 billion pounds of copper. Lots of exploration been done on Tringalek, nearly 18,000 meters of drilling, nearly 4,000 kilometers of airborne mag work. The focus that's been done in the past has been on an epithermal prospect, which is where the permit allows the mine to develop. From our perspective, that's actually the least interesting part of this project. And we've been able to downgrade again some forestry areas to enable drilling to occur on porphyry prospects that exist within the tenement. We're in the process of getting the final borrow use license to enable that drilling to take place before we go and drill there. So we actually want to go hunt the big porphyry copper play in that space rather than focusing on the work that's been previously done in the epithermal area. Our last project is where it all started for us is Wanagiri. It's a fairly shallow sub-outcropping porphyry, million ounces of gold, resource estimate 190 million pounds of copper. We've just in the process of finalising an updated scoping study for this project. Previous vendors had a scoping study done back in 2016 when gold was $1,300 an ounce and copper was 5,500 a tonne. So we're working through the cost inputs and the cash flow modelling for that. So we're hoping to be able to release the results of that scoping study very shortly. What we like about this project is it is a fairly inexpensive CapEx near-term development opportunity, which makes a very interesting element to a junior exploration company's portfolio. We also have 3 projects in Queensland. Now, we did this for a strategic reason. A lot of junior exploration companies who go and try and do work in Indonesia have had challenges. We think we have the team who's got experience in Indonesia to manage and overcome those challenges that may present themselves along the way. But we're also mindful that every project will have issues, and there may be issues which can potentially delay a project. So having 3 projects in a relatively simple area of Queensland gave us an operational jurisdictional hedge, which we thought was strategically important for our business. Now, I'll just quickly run through next slide. Hill 212 is a fairly straightforward, low sulfidation epithermal vein system. We've identified about 10,000 metres of structure, but only about 2,500 metres of that has been mapped. We've just finished an 11-hole, 2,100 metre drilling program, RC drilling. That's on top of the previous 9 holes that have been done. We went to depths of nearly 400 metres in some of the holes. The purpose of that was to get a better understanding of the structure. Like we have a theoretical model that this could be something similar to a Virinancy type deposit. So we've gone and done drilling within some outcroppings, some geophysics areas, and some deeper areas near the previous holes to get an understanding of what the mineralogy looks like, to see what next exploration be justified on this tenement. Bluegrass Creek, that adjoins directly to our tenement, Hill 212, but also the Mount Coolin tenement, which is owned by GBM Resources, sorry, ASX code GBZ. GBM just announced a $25 million farming agreement with Newcrest for that Mount Coolin project, and they're our direct neighbours. Now, we see Bluegrass Creek and Hill 212 as effectively the same project, and we see from indications of Astra's spectral survey work that the vein system extends on a northeast trend from Hill 212 up into Bluegrass Creek. And now our last project, which we're really excited about, is Mount Clark West. It's a copper gold porphyry prospect. We've just finished deep ground penetrating geophysics work called the MIMDAS geophysics survey. That went down depths of beyond 700 meters. We're in the process of working through the outcome of that work to define an exploration target, which will be a bulk tonnage porphyry prospect. And we're in the process of working through all that so we can release that shortly to the market about what we've seen from the outcome of this very exciting geophysics work, which is built upon the magnetic work and the soil sampling of geochem and drilling that's previously been done on the site. So really excited about what we're seeing there. One other thing that I think we're really proud of from a company, we were admitted to the United Nations Global Compact at the beginning of this year in March. And in doing that, we became the first junior listed Australian exploration company, either in Australia or Indonesia, to be accepted in the United Nations Global Compact, which means that we've agreed to align our business strategy and operations with the 10 principles on human rights, labour rights, the environment, and anti-corruption, and then promote sustainable development goals. Every year we have to report on how we're going and implementing those strategies and operations, but we also get access to roundtable plenary sessions and get an ability to set up from day one best practice in terms of sustainability. So that's Far East Gold in a snapshot. In terms of our projects, most of our capital is being spent in Indonesia because we see we have potentially 2 tier 1 projects in our portfolio in Wanagiri and Tringalek. We have a near-term development opportunity in Woyla and Tringalek, and we have a near-term development opportunity in Wanagiri. And then we have 3 really interesting and highly prospective projects in the Drummond Basin and on Conazark in Queensland. Thank you.
Paul, thank you for the great presentation. And you've got a certainly very interesting portfolio of projects there. We've had a few questions come through, so let me jump into them. So, given core samples have been sent to the lab in Jakarta, what's the strategy of releasing your drill results for Woyla, especially given that the 2 rigs are now drilling at Anak Perak?
Yes. So our plan is to get an understanding of what we're seeing with the core samples, seeing whether or not there's consistent mineralization across the core, to see whether once we have an adequate number of assays back, it's representative of what we're seeing. So at the moment, we're seeing quite distinct mineralization across the each location. So we've only actually drilled about 500 meters of the 4.7 kilometers, and we're seeing quite distinct mineralization. So we're being careful and probably conservative to make sure that we don't jump the gun too quickly with some results on say 2 or 3 holes, whilst getting subtly different views of other core samples coming through. So, pretty happy that we're 13 holes into an 18-hole first phase program. So, even if we wait for the whole program to be done, it won't be too far away.
Thanks. You just actually answered my next question, but I think probably another one. So in addition to the results that are coming through, what else can shareholders look forward to over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
Oh, okay. So obviously, the big news for us is the definition of an exploration target in Mount Clark West, which is, we're really excited about what people will see in that, because it's quite interesting in terms of the scale and size of the porphyry prospect we'll be targeting. The next news for us, obviously, in the next short term, releasing the scoping study. We've also just engaged people to upgrade the feasibility study on Wanagiri. So, early next year, we're talking sort of PFS type reporting. So, getting all of the pieces in place to decide how we monetize and capitalize a development and operation of the Wanagiri asset.
Wonderful. Well, Paul, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you for the great presentation, and a copy of today's recording will be available online in the coming days. But thank you again.
Thanks.